My name is Robert, and I survived 30 years of marriage only to realize that the person I loved the most had spent the last decade quietly planning my total destruction. I sat at the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, staring at a piece of cream-colored stationery. It was thick, expensive paper. The handwriting was neat, elegant, and entirely cold. She had left it right next to my lukewarm cup of coffee. The note was short, maybe 4 sentences long. She told me she was moving on. She told me she had found a man who was everything I wasn't. She used the words real man to describe him. Then she used the words failed writer to describe me. She mentioned my lack of spine and my lack of ambition. It was funny, in a way. She didn't know that the very words she was using to hurt me were the same words I had been paid to write for other people for years. I looked around the house. It was a nice house. We had worked for it, or so I thought. But she had seen to it that the papers were in her favor years ago. She had convinced me to refinance a few years back. She told me it was for tax purposes. I didn't pay much attention then. I was too busy finishing a manuscript for a client in the city. The client was a man named Senator Sterling. He was a rising star in the state legislature. Everyone thought he was brilliant. Everyone thought he was a self-made man with a philosophy that would change the world. The truth was, Sterling couldn't write a grocery list without help. I was the one who crafted his speeches. I was the one who wrote his op-eds. I was the one who gave him the backbone he clearly lacked. I looked at the clock. It was 8 a.m. She had left at 6 a.m. She was already busy packing. She had told me she wanted the house, and because of that refinancing trick from 3 years ago, she had the legal right to it. I took a sip of my coffee. It was bitter, but I drank it anyway. I needed the caffeine. I had a lot of work to do today. My revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be structural. I stood up and walked to my office. It was a small room at the back of the house. It was full of books and stacks of paper. I had a heavy mahogany desk that I had owned since college. I opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. Inside was a black leather folder. It contained every contract, every draft, and every email I had exchanged with Senator Sterling over the last 5 years. There was also a specific document in there. It was a non-disclosure agreement. It wasn't the standard one the senator's staff used. This was one I had drafted myself, with a little help from a lawyer friend of mine. The senator had signed it the day we started our professional relationship. He thought it was just a formality. He didn't read the fine print. He never read the fine print. I heard the sound of a heavy engine pulling into the driveway. It was a moving truck. She was coming back earlier than I expected. She didn't want to waste any time. I walked to the window. I saw her step out of her car. She looked different. She looked lighter. She was talking on her phone, laughing. I assumed she was talking to the real man she mentioned. That man was the senator's chief of staff. He was a man who thought he was smarter than everyone else in the room. He was the one who had been encouraging her to leave me for months. I watched her walk up the front path. She had a key, of course. She didn't even bother to knock. She pushed the door open and walked in with a confidence that made my stomach turn. I stayed in my office. I wanted to see how this would play out. I heard her footsteps on the hardwood floor. She was calling out my name, but it wasn't a question. It was an instruction. "Robert, are you here?" she called out. Her voice was sharp and impatient. I walked out into the hallway. I stood there, leaning against the doorframe of my office. I kept my hands in my pockets. I looked calm. I think that annoyed her more than anything else. "You're still here," she said. She wasn't happy about it. She wanted the house empty. She wanted to start her new life without any traces of the old one. "I'm still here," I replied. My voice was steady. "I have a few things to finish up." "Get your things," she said. She didn't even look at me. She started pointing at pieces of furniture. "I have men coming in 20 minutes. I want the living room cleared out by noon." "You seem very organized," I said. I was observing her. She really did have it all planned out. She had been preparing for this day while I was busy paying the mortgage. "I've been preparing for this for a long time, Robert," she said. She finally looked at me. There was no pity in her eyes. There was only a cold, hard indifference. "I noticed," I said. "It's an impressive plan." "It's a necessary plan," she corrected. "You're an anchor, Robert. You always have been. You're happy with your books and your quiet life. I want more. I want to be around people who actually do things." "By do things, you mean the senator," I said. She tightened her lips. "He's a man of action. He's building a future. You're just writing about the past." "That's a fair point," I said. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just accepted her assessment. It made her even more uneasy. She wanted to fight. She wanted me to be the failed writer she had written about. "I'm going to the kitchen to get some water," she said. She walked past me, brushing my shoulder hard. It was a calculated move. She wanted to see if I would flinch. I didn't. I followed her into the kitchen. The kitchen was the heart of the home. It was where we had spent our best years. It was also where she had left that note. She opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. She didn't offer me one. She drank it standing up, looking out the window at the moving truck. "The lawyer will be here soon," she said. "He's going to handle the final handover of the property deeds. I suggest you sign the papers without making a scene." "I'm sure the lawyer will be very thorough," I said. "He's the best in the state," she said. "He doesn't make mistakes." I smiled. Everyone makes mistakes. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. She went to the door and let him in. He was a tall man in an expensive suit. He looked like he had never missed a billable hour in his life. He walked into the kitchen as if he owned the place. He didn't even acknowledge me at first. He went straight to the table and opened his briefcase. "Good morning," he said to her. He didn't look at me until she nodded in my direction. "And you must be Mr. Henderson." "I am," I said. "And you are the man who is going to make sure my wife gets everything she wants." The lawyer looked uncomfortable. He didn't like the way I addressed him. He cleared his throat and started laying out documents. The house deed, the transfer forms, the liability waivers. "These are standard procedures," he said to me. "If you could just sign these, we can expedite the process." I didn't move. I stayed in my chair. I looked at the papers. They were very clean. They were very professional. They were exactly what one would expect in a divorce settlement. "I have something I want you to read first," I said. The lawyer frowned. "Mr. Henderson, we have a schedule to keep." "I know," I said. I pulled the single legal envelope from my pocket. It was thick. It had a heavy seal. I slid it across the table toward him. He looked at the envelope. He didn't want to touch it. He looked at my wife. She looked at me with a mix of confusion and anger. "What is this?" she asked. "It's a contribution to your future," I said, "and the future of your new partner." The lawyer slowly opened the envelope. He pulled out the document. It was a copy of the non-disclosure agreement I had mentioned. It was dated 5 years ago. He started reading. I saw his eyes move across the page. At first, he looked bored. Then, he looked surprised. Finally, his hands started shaking. He looked up at me. He was pale. He didn't look at the house deeds anymore. He looked at the document like it was a live grenade. He looked at my wife. He whispered, "Do you know what he has here?" She looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "Just get the house signed over." "He has the proof," the lawyer whispered. "He has the evidence of the senator's ghostwriting arrangements. He has the logs of the payments. He has the signed agreement that prohibits the disclosure of the source material." "So," she said, "who cares? Who cares?" The lawyer repeated, his voice rising slightly. "If this gets out, the senator's entire platform collapses. Every policy he's proposed, every speech he's given, it's all tied to this. If people find out he didn't write a single word of his own legacy, he's done." "And?" she asked again, still not understanding. "And," the lawyer looked at me. He's the one who wrote it all. He holds the copyright to the senator's identity. I sat back in my chair. I finally felt a sense of relief. It had been years of sitting in the shadows, watching someone else take credit for my thoughts and my energy. The senator's career is entirely dependent on the work I provided, I said. That agreement says that if he breaches the terms, or if his staff attempts to hide the nature of our work, he forfeits all rights to the material. You can't do that, the lawyer said. That would ruin him. I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just exercising my legal rights. I'm a writer, remember? I know how to use words to create a narrative. And right now, the narrative is that the senator is a fraud. My wife was finally starting to understand. She looked at me, and for the first time in 30 years, she looked afraid. You wouldn't, she whispered. I would, I said. You wanted to trade me in for a real man who works for a fake leader. That's your choice. But you don't get to take my home and use it as a base for your new life. The lawyer stood up. He was sweating now. We need to talk about this. There has to be a way to resolve this quietly. There is, I said. The house stays with me. The divorce papers are rewritten to reflect that. And the senator finds a new job. He shouldn't be in office anyway. He'll sue you, my wife said, trying to regain her strength. With what money? I asked. If this goes public, he won't have a job, and he certainly won't have the support of his donors. Do you think they'll stick with him once they realize he's a hollow shell? She looked around the kitchen. She looked at the moving boxes. The dream she had been building was falling apart in front of her. You're a monster, she said. No, I said. I'm just a man who worked for 30 years. I'm a man who gave you everything, including the words you used to hurt me. I'm just taking back what is mine. The silence in the room was heavy. The lawyer looked at the agreement again. He knew he couldn't win this. He knew that if he fought, he would be the one exposing his own client. I need to make some calls, the lawyer said. Take your time, I said. But the moving truck needs to be gone by noon. I don't want any of your things on my property. He nodded and walked out of the kitchen. He went outside to make his calls. I heard him talking in a panicked voice. I could hear him mentioning the senator's name. My wife stood there. She was shaking. She looked small. She had spent so long building up this idea of a new life that she hadn't stopped to consider that I might have built a life of my own, too. Why? She asked. Why did I do the work? I asked. Because I believed in the policies. Because I wanted to make a difference. And why am I doing this now? Because you sold me out for a man who is nothing without me. She didn't have an answer for that. She just turned around and walked out of the house. She went to her car. She didn't look back. The lawyer came back inside. 10 minutes later, he looked defeated. He had clearly spoken to the senator, and the conversation hadn't gone well. We agree to the terms, he said. He didn't even look at me. The house is yours. We will have the papers sent to you by the end of the day. I'll be waiting, I said. He left without another word. Soon, I heard the engine of the moving truck start up. It pulled out of the driveway and headed down the street. I was alone. I walked to the kitchen window and watched the truck disappear. I felt a strange sense of clarity. For 30 years, I had been defined by my marriage. I had been defined by my work for someone else. Now it was just me. I made myself a fresh cup of coffee. I sat back at the table. I looked at the empty room. It was mine. The quiet was mine. The future was mine. I spent the rest of the day looking through my files. I found letters, drafts, and notes. I found the history of my own life. I hadn't realized how much of myself I had given away. I had been the voice of a man I didn't even respect. I had been the backbone of a career that was built on a lie. I realized then that the biggest mistake I had made wasn't the marriage. It was the belief that I needed someone else to make me feel significant. The senator needed me. My wife needed me. But I didn't need them. I spent the next few weeks clearing out the rest of the house. I got rid of the furniture she had picked out. I repainted the walls. I made the space mine. I also sat down and started writing. But this time, it wasn't for the senator. It was for me. It was the story I had been meaning to tell for years. It was a story about a man who was underestimated. It was a story about someone who held the power to change his own life, even when everyone else thought he was weak. The senator lost his seat within a month. The story about his ghostwriting came out, not through me, but through the chaos that followed his panicked attempts to cover it up. He didn't have anyone left to write his defense. He didn't have anyone to tell him what to say. He was left with his own words, and it was a disaster. My wife also disappeared from my life. I don't know where she went. I don't care. I hope she found what she was looking for. I hope she found someone who could tell her the things she wanted to hear. But I know one thing for sure. She never saw me clearly, and that was the best thing she could have done for me. The house is quiet now. It's a good house. It's a place where I can work and think and breathe. It's a place where I am finally the main character of my own story. I learned that being underestimated is a gift. It allows you to build your own strength in secret. It allows you to prepare for your future while everyone else is busy looking for weaknesses. I still write. People approach me sometimes to work for them. They see my work and they want to hire me to be their voice. I tell them no. I don't want to be anyone's voice anymore. I am happy being mine. I am happy with the quiet. I am happy with the life I have built with my own hands. In the end, revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about taking my life back. It was about proving to myself that I was never the failed writer they thought I was. I was the one who held the pen all along. Living for 30 years under the shadow of someone else's expectations is a heavy toll. It wears you down. It makes you forget who you were when you started. But you can always reclaim yourself. You can always start over, no matter how much you feel like you have lost. You don't need to be loud to make a point. You don't need to be aggressive to show your strength. You just need to know the truth about who you are. The truth is the most powerful weapon you have. It stays with you when everything else is stripped away. I look at the house now, and I see a future. I see a new chapter. I see a man who is finally at peace with his own choices. I'm 60 years old. I have a lifetime of experience. I have a house that is paid for. I have a career that is entirely my own. I'm not a politician. I'm not a ghost. I'm just Robert. And for the first time in my life, that is enough. If I could reach out to the man I was 30 years ago, I would tell him one thing. I would tell him to keep his own words. I would tell him to put his own name on his work. But I can't reach him. I can only reach the person I am today. And the person I am today is someone who has learned to trust himself above all else. There is a freedom in that. There is a sense of calm that I never thought I would find. It's not just about the house. It's about the space inside my own head. It's about being able to sit in a room and not feel like I'm waiting for approval. It's about being able to wake up in the morning and know that the day is mine to define. If you are currently in a situation where you feel small, remember that your power is only as limited as you allow it to be. Your value isn't decided by the people who use you. Your value is defined by the integrity of your actions and the truth you hold on to. Don't let anyone tell you who you are. If you leave that to them, they will always paint a picture that serves their own needs, not yours. Take back the pen. Write your own ending. Even if you have to do it in the dark, even if you have to do it alone, it is worth it. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to reclaim the life you were meant to have. The house might be the same, and the walls might be the same, but the life inside is unrecognizable. And that is the best kind of change. I look at my hands now, and I don't see the hands of a servant to someone else's ambition. I see the hands of a man who built his own foundation. I'm still writing, but now I'm writing the truth. And the truth is the most liberating thing I have ever known. I don't harbor any anger anymore. The anger served its purpose. It kept me focused while I was laying the groundwork for my own liberation. Now, I just keep moving. I keep working. I keep living. Each day is better than the last. Each day is a testament to the fact that I survived. You might be going through something similar. You might feel like you've been used. You might feel like you've been forgotten. But you are still here. As long as you are still here, you have an opportunity to rewrite the narrative. You have the chance to decide what happens next. Don't let them have the last word. You are the author of your own existence. Make it a good story. I watch the sunset from my porch now. It's a beautiful view. I didn't notice how beautiful it was for years. I was too busy looking at the clock. Now, I have all the time in the world. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not running from anyone. I'm just here, enjoying the quiet of a life that finally belongs to me. I have learned that the people who try to make you feel small are usually the ones who are the most afraid of your potential. They need you to be what they want you to be because they are terrified of what you could actually do if you were free. So, let them be afraid. You go ahead and be free. It's a long road to get back to yourself, but I promise you, the destination is worth every single step. I'm Robert Henderson, and I'm finally home. The life lesson here is simple. Never let someone else define your value or your capacity. The moment you realize your worth is internal, the moment you become truly dangerous to anyone who hopes to keep you small. True power isn't about control or titles. It's about holding on to your identity when the world tries to take it from you. When you stand in your own truth, you are immovable. Eventually, the people who underestimated you will have to deal with the person you were always meant to be. If this story resonated with you, join our channel by liking and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.